Now I want to speak honestly about something, because understanding the value of silence is one thing. Actually practicing it in our daily lives, in our relationships, in our own minds is something else entirely. And the reason most people struggle with silence comes down to one thing: the need to be heard. This is one of the deepest human needs. It is not weakness, it is not vanity. It is simply part of being human. We want to matter. We want to be seen. We want our thoughts and feelings and experiences to be acknowledged. And in a world that rewards loudness, that gives attention to whoever speaks the most, posts the most, performs the most, silence can feel like disappearing. The Stoics understood this tension, and they addressed it directly. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "How much more grievous are the consequences of anger than the causes of it." He was not just talking about anger. He was talking about every impulsive reaction, every word spoken too quickly, every opinion shared unnecessarily, every argument entered into without thought. The consequences of speaking carelessly are almost always worse than the discomfort of staying silent. Think about this in your own life. How many conflicts began because someone said something that didn't need to be said? How many relationships were damaged by words spoken in a moment of emotion? How many opportunities were lost because someone revealed too much too soon? The Stoics practiced what they called restraint of speech, not as a form of suppression, but as a form of wisdom. They asked themselves before speaking, is what I am about to say true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? Does it improve upon the silence? If the answer to any of these questions was no, they stayed silent, not because they had nothing to say, but because they understood that not every thought deserves a voice. And in choosing their words with care, they made the words they did speak carry extraordinary weight. There is a reason we remember the words of Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus 2,000 years later. They did not speak carelessly. Every word was chosen, weighed, intentional. And that intentionality, born from silence, is what made their words last. How to practice Stoic silence today. So how do we bring this ancient practice into a modern life? Here are 5 Stoic silence practices, simple, specific, and available to you starting today. Practice 1, the morning silence. Before you reach for your phone, before you speak to anyone, before you consume anything, sit in silence for 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes, no music, no podcast, no news, no scrolling, just you and your breath and the quiet morning. The Stoics began their day with reflection, and reflection requires silence. This one practice, done consistently, will change the quality of your entire day. Practice 2, the intentional pause. Before you respond in any conversation, especially a difficult one, pause. Not for a long time, just 3 seconds. Breathe, think, then speak. This single habit will eliminate more unnecessary conflict from your life than almost anything else you could do. The Stoics called this procession, careful attention to oneself. The pause is where procession lives. Practice 3, the weekly solitude walk. Once a week, go for a walk alone. No headphones, no phone calls, no podcasts. Just you and the world around you. Walk slowly, observe, let your mind wander without directing it. Seneca did this regularly. Marcus Aurelius walked the gardens of his palace in solitary reflection. Epictetus taught his students to observe the world with quiet attention. The walking silence is one of the oldest and most powerful practices in human history. Practice 4, the speech filter. Before speaking, especially in situations where you feel the urge to defend yourself, explain yourself, or react, ask these 4 questions. Is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? Does it improve upon the silence? If you cannot answer yes to at least 2 of these, stay silent. You will be amazed how much unnecessary pain this filter removes from your life. Practice 5, the digital sunset. 1 hour before bed, no screens, no phone. No television, no input, just silence, or soft music, or a physical book. Give your mind the space to process the day before sleep. The Stoics believed the evening was sacred time, time for reflection, for gratitude, for preparing the mind for tomorrow. That sacred time cannot exist in the middle of digital noise. Protect it. There is an old Zen saying, though the Stoics would have agreed with it completely, silence is not the absence of something. It is the presence of everything. In silence, you hear your own thoughts clearly, perhaps for the first time. In silence, you notice the beauty of the world that noise has been drowning out. In silence, you find the version of yourself that does not need to perform, to react, to be seen. The version that simply is. Marcus Aurelius, in all his power and responsibility, found his greatest strength not in his armies or his authority. He found it in the quiet mornings, in the private pages of his journal. In the stillness he cultivated inside himself, a stillness that no external chaos could reach. That stillness is available to you, not after you fix your life. Not when things calm down, not someday, now, in this breath, in this moment. In the choice right now to be a little more quiet, a little more intentional, a little more present, Epictetus said. First learn the meaning of what you say and then speak. And perhaps the deepest meaning of all, the one that takes a lifetime to learn, is the meaning of silence itself. Long pause. Let the silence breathe for 4-5 seconds. Thank you for spending this time with me in the quiet today. If this resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and I will see you on day 10. Until then, speak less, listen more, and be well. Did you feel that stillness, that quiet, that space where nothing was happening and yet somehow everything felt more present? That is the power of silence. And in a world that never stops talking, never stops buzzing, pinging, scrolling, streaming, silence has become one of the rarest and most powerful things a human being can possess. The Stoics knew this 2,000 years before smartphones, before social media, before the endless noise of modern life. The Stoics were already warning us. They were already saying, be careful with your words, guard your attention. Protect your inner quiet, because they understood something that most people today have completely forgotten. Your silence is not emptiness, it is power. Welcome to day 9 of our Stoic journey. Today we explore one of the most underrated teachings in all of Stoic philosophy, the power of silence. Take a breath, let the world outside fall away, and let's begin. We live in the loudest era in human history. Think about that for a moment. At no point in the thousands of years of human civilization has there been this much noise, this much information. This many voices, opinions, notifications, alerts, headlines, arguments, all competing for the one thing you have a limited supply of. Your attention. The average person today consumes the equivalent of 174 newspapers worth of information every single day. And in the middle of all this noise, we wonder why we feel anxious, scattered, overwhelmed, empty. We wonder why we cannot think clearly, why we cannot make decisions with confidence. Why, at the end of a full day, we feel more drained than restored. The Stoics would not wonder at all. They would simply say, "You have forgotten how to be quiet." Epictetus, the freed slave who became one of the greatest philosophers in history, gave his students a rule that I want you to sit with. He said, "Be silent for the most part, or say only what is necessary and in a few words. Be silent for the most part, in the most part. When is the last time you were truly silent, not just physically quiet, but mentally still? Not listening to something, not planning something, not replaying a conversation in your mind." For most people, the honest answer is, I cannot remember, and this is not weakness, it is not laziness. It is simply what happens when we live in a world that has made silence uncomfortable and noise the default. But here is what the Stoics understood with crystal clarity. The quality of your life is determined not by how much you consume, but by how clearly you can think. And you cannot think clearly in constant noise. Silence is not the absence of something. Silence is the presence of everything that matters. What Marcus learned from quiet Marcus Aurelius was the Emperor of Rome. His days were filled with the loudest, most demanding noise imaginable. War councils, political disputes, petitions from thousands of citizens, the weight of an entire empire pressing down on him from every direction. And yet he found silence. Every morning before the demands of the day began, Marcus would sit with his journal and write, not for anyone else, not for history, just for himself. He was creating a daily island of silence in the middle of an ocean of noise, and in that silence he found something extraordinary, clarity. He wrote, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." Read that again. Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul, not in a mountain cabin, not on a deserted island, not after retirement or after the children grow up or after the big project is finished. Inside, right now, in this moment. The Stoics believed that true silence is not about your external environment, it is about your internal state. You can be in a noisy room and be completely still inside. You can be in perfect physical quiet and have a mind that never stops screaming. The silence the Stoics were after was the silence of a settled mind, a mind that does not react to every stimulus, a mind that does not need to fill every empty moment with noise, a mind that is comfortable, deeply, genuinely comfortable with its own company. Marcus Aurelius practiced this through his journaling. Epictetus practiced this through what he called restraint of speech. Seneca practiced this through long periods of solitary reflection. Each of them in their own way was training the same muscle, the muscle of inner quiet. And like any muscle, it grows stronger with practice and weaker with neglect. The question is not whether you can be silent. The question is whether you have given yourself enough practice to make silence feel like home. The 3 gifts of silence. The Stoics did not value silence as a spiritual luxury. They valued it as a practical necessity, because in their observation of human life, they saw that silence consistently produced 3 things that every person desperately needs, and that noise consistently destroys. I want to share these 3 gifts with you now. Gift 1, wisdom. Zeno of Citium, the founder of Stoicism, is said to have told his students, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we should listen twice as much as we speak." This is not just a saying about politeness. It is a profound observation about how wisdom is actually acquired. Most people, when they enter a conversation, are not listening. They are waiting for their turn to speak, preparing their response, thinking about what they will say next, and in that waiting, they miss everything. The Stoics understood that wisdom does not come from speaking. It comes from observing, from listening, from being quiet long enough to actually see what is in front of you. A person who speaks constantly never learns anything new, because they are always hearing their own voice, their own existing beliefs, their own familiar thoughts, their own echo. But a person who is comfortable with silence, who can sit quietly and observe, absorbs the world around them with extraordinary depth. They notice what others miss. They understand what others misread. They see patterns that the noise-addicted mind cannot perceive. Silence is the doorway to wisdom. Gift 2, strength. There is a Stoic teaching that I find endlessly powerful. Epictetus said, "If you wish to improve, be content to appear clueless or stupid in extraneous matters." What he meant was this: most people speak, not because they have something valuable to say, but because they are afraid of what silence might mean. Silence to an insecure mind feels like weakness, like having nothing to offer, like being overlooked or underestimated. And so people fill silence with words, endless words, words to seem knowledgeable, words to seem important, words to seem relevant. But the Stoics saw this clearly for what it was: not strength, but fear. True strength, the kind that cannot be rattled, the kind that does not need external validation, expresses itself through silence. The person who does not need to defend themselves at every criticism. The person who does not need to have the last word in every argument. The person who does not need to fill every silence with the sound of their own voice. That person is not weak, that person is formidable, because they have mastered the one thing most people never do. They have stopped needing the approval of noise. Gift 3, peace. This is perhaps the most personal gift of silence, and the one most urgently needed in our time. The Stoics believed that most human suffering is caused not by external events, but by our mental response to them. And our mental response is almost always louder, more dramatic, and more destructive when it is fed by constant noise. When we are always consuming, always scrolling, always listening, always absorbing, we give our minds no time to process. No time to settle, no time to find their natural resting state, and a mind that never rests never heals. Seneca wrote, "Retire into yourself as much as possible." This is not escapism, it is maintenance. Just as the body needs sleep to restore itself, the mind needs silence. Not once a week, not on vacation, every day. Even 10 minutes of genuine silence, no phone, no music, no input, can begin to restore the clarity and peace that noise has stolen. The Stoics called this ataraxia, a state of tranquility and freedom from mental disturbance. And they believed it was not a luxury reserved for monks or philosophers. It was the natural state of a well-tended mind. A mind given the gift of regular silence, the enemy of silence, the need to be heard.